Hi, I'm Deborah,
And I'm Lawrence.
and this is the second one of our videos this year for back to school for kids and teens with depression. And actually, a lot of this applies to kids and teens with anxiety. So normally it's difficult if you have depression or anxiety, doing schoolwork, getting organized, not getting totally freaked out at the work you have to do. And now, if you're doing school online, you got a lot of other problems going on.
Yeah.
You don't have as much oversight from teachers. You don't have as much structure, and you have a lot of distractions you normally wouldn't have if you were actually on site in school. So you actually need to get a lot more organized and a lot more self-directed than you did in the past. So that's basically another thing to just make you freak yourself out about.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, I've lived with depression for on and off for decades, and Lawrence has, and so we've learned different ways to cope. So we're going to talk about how to get yourself organized so that you don't like completely lose your mind when you're trying to get through the school year. So we know the way not to handle schoolwork. I used to do this when I was in, middle school, high school, and college, in the beginning of college. Basically, especially with projects, wait until the absolute last minute and, keep putting it off, have it hanging over your head, right? Making you stressed out.
I do that all the time.
Yep. And, that's a method or lack of method. But for me, what happened is it just, I was an English lit major. And when I first started college, what would happen is I'd have like multiple papers to write. One time, I think I wrote 3 papers in one night. That's not a good idea. Not only, is your work crappy, but then literally, so for weeks, you're dreading it and worrying about it. And that's just not good for your health. I mean, that contributes to stress. And, not to mention lack of sleep. One way to handle things like big projects, like long-term projects, either, like a term paper or studying for a big exam, or something like that, as well as your shorter term assignments, is to get organized. And you may be someone who never really has thought about getting organized, isn't really into to-do lists, stuff like that. But this is one way to handle it and keep yourself sane. And the most important thing that getting organized does is it gives you back control. Because when you have depression, and anxiety, you're overwhelmed by a lot of different things, and you feel like you don't have control over things, right? I mean, that's very frustrating, especially if you're a kid or a teen. There are parts of your life that you don't have control over because you're a minor. The last thing you need is to also have, the stuff that you're responsible for, your schoolwork, also causing you to feel like you're out of control and not getting enough sleep. I mean, the thing is like even people without depression or anxiety can get overwhelmed by schoolwork.
Easily.
Yeah. So this is not saying that you can't handle things without getting organized. You probably could. But the thing, what getting organized does is it takes it off your mental plate, and you get things to the point where all you have to do is handle one thing a day, let's say, for a specific project or studying for a big test. Then, okay, today I just have to do this stuff. So your mind isn't thinking about the whole thing because you only have to think about today. And that's the thing with depression is it can be so hard to get through life. Okay. So, a lot of people, they just take it kind of like with AA. You just take it day by day. I'm going to make it through this day. Because a lot of times with depression, all you can really think about is this day. It's just you can't even really think about the future. You've lost hope. So kind of thinking about the future is really hard if you don't have hope. So anyway, so the thing to do is to turn into a fairly organized person when it comes to your schoolwork.
That may be easier said than done, but it's still worth putting as much effort into it as you can.
Yeah. So, but what we're going to do is talk about different ways to get organized and also different methods that you can use. And so what we'll do is we'll have a bunch of links down below of anything we talk about. So the first thing you want to do is to get some kind of rudimentary calendar program if you don't have it already. I mean, you probably have one on your phone. And so let's say you have a big assignment or, project or a big test to study for. First thing you do is when you get your syllabus or when the teacher tells you, what date something is due, is to put it in your calendar. It really helps to have it there because it seems less nebulous. You know what I mean? And it also is not as easy to just push it out of your mind. When you look at your calendar to look for, something else, you should also keep other things on the calendar, like, I don't know, nowadays, obviously, there's not a lot of get-togethers, but like, all your social stuff. So then you get used to looking on it at a regular basis. So you can't avoid seeing, bio exam, and the date. So it keeps it in your mind and actually far, in some ways, far from actually making you more anxious, it actually, you still know you have that exam coming up.
Yeah.
So seeing the date isn't necessarily going to make you more anxious about it, especially if you've been planning. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is bring the project down to a manageable size, like literally cut it down to size. This makes it less overwhelming. And this is one of the things that gives you control over it. Okay. So, let's say you have remember that project you had to do for national parks. So there were several different parts to that. So you had to do research.
Yeah.
Then you had
create the slideshow and stuff.
Create the slideshow, but basically, let's say in this case, you also had to write a script.
Yeah.
So it was do the research, write a script, like a first draft, edit it, go back and check the sources, things like that, and then actually create the slideshow. And we use the Google version of PowerPoint. And then, of course, within creating the slideshow, it was finding photos. It was things like it was finding photos and illustrations and stuff. So there were different aspects to actually creating the slideshow. So then you write all those things down. Okay, so you're breaking it down into parts. Then, if applicable, what you do is you break those down into smaller parts. Okay, so let's say, just as an example, so he had to find research about about this particular national park. So you could break it down into different sources. I need to check this source, and this source. So let's say you have a book about it, or there's one online in the library or whatever. The book, the internet, Wikipedia, other sources. So you break it down as far as it needs to be broken down, and then what you do is you're going to then assign those parts. Figure out how long it's going to take and assign those parts to different days. So what this also helps you to do, taking a large project and breaking it down, or let's say you're reviewing for an exam. Okay, so you're going to take, generally those textbooks have huge chapters. So what you want to do when you're reviewing stuff for an exam is then you want to say, okay, I'm not going to study maybe a whole chapter in one day, but I'll do these pages. But what this also helps you do is it helps you prioritize your daily and short-term work along with the project, because otherwise you're going, I've got this thing I have to do for tomorrow, but I also have this research project that I'm supposed to be doing too, or this term paper I'm supposed to be doing too. Which do I do first? What do I do? Well, if you have, if you've broken things down, okay, well, today I plan to work on this part of the project. Let's say the teacher springs a surprise on you. Oh, you need to do, there's something you need to do for tomorrow. Okay, well then you're going to move that particular part of the project to the next day, or when this surprise project is done. So it just helps you prioritize things, because otherwise you're just kind of flailing around. I mean, like mentally, right?
Mhm.
I mean, isn't that what you think? You're just kind of mentally flailing around and just freaking out. So again, that's where the control comes in. Instead of going, oh my God, I have this thing, but I actually was going to start working on that project today. And this pushes it a day. Let's say you've already procrastinated for a couple weeks. Then you're like, oh my God, this is pushing it even further. But if you've been working on getting organized, then it just won't throw you as much for a loop. So there are a lot of different what's called productivity systems. So that's basically what that does, is it takes just putting something on a calendar or a very simple to-do list and says, well, this is the way I'm going to break things down. The one I started using recently for this new job is called Getting Things Done. It's fairly elaborate, so it's definitely not for everyone, except for people who really like to be hyper organized and break things down into detail. It works with my Google Calendar, so I can put a task for myself and have it immediately sync to my Google Calendar because I've put a date on that task. But there are more simple systems than Getting Things Done. There's and these are real names. There's one called Eat That Frog. Okay, so it's something from Mark Twain, like something Mark Twain said about eating a frog. If you're going to have to eat a frog, then like do it right first thing in the morning or something like that. But anyway, it's like, so if you have something you really don't want to do, get it done first thing in the morning, because you're probably fresher in the morning, after you get past that like first couple hours where you're really like out of it. But your brain's probably fresher, and then you don't have it hanging over you. Then this one, A, B, C, D, E, I can't remember what that one's like. But so that's another one. There's another one called time boxing. There's another one I think that was based after or created by one of our presidents, President Eisenhower, who was a general in, I think, the Second World War. So some of these are more for like, work, like employment work, than for schoolwork. You may have to try a few to find out which works with your personality, the way you do things. And it's like shoes. You got to try them on to know whether they're going to fit or pinch or whatever. So what you might want to do also, as I said, like I do, is put it into software. So there's like Todoist, there's, a bunch of other ones. I even, at one of my jobs created a whole spreadsheet with all the different ones to figure out which had the features that I wanted. You could also just use something like Google Tasks, Microsoft To Do. The Apple operating systems have some nice ones. So some of them are simple, some of them are not so simple. So you have to find the level of detail and ability to break things down that you need. So the most important thing when you're using a productivity system and an organizational system is you don't just set it up and forget it. What you need to do to actually keep this working is set yourself, make an appointment every week with yourself to review what you were supposed to do for the week. Did you get it done? If you didn't, then you're going to need to move it to the next week. Otherwise it's useless unless you revisit it on a regular basis and make sure that it's working for you, as well as did you get stuff done.
So my organizational method is not particularly special. My school automatically has stuff like, we have a learning platform that has all this stuff on it, and they used to have it set up where it told you what was going on, but now they replaced that, and it sucks, and I hate it.
But a lot of kids are going to be using those types of learning platforms this year.
And I just keep tabs open on my laptop, and I group the tabs by which class they're related to. So, end of last year, I had maybe like 14 tabs, and, there was the first couple were, like my email, the main page of the platform, and then there was like stuff for Spanish, stuff for math, stuff for history or something. Obviously, you may not be, using a learning platform. You may just be getting assignments from your teachers, but I don't know. That helps me. In the case of classes, all of mine are on Google Calendar, so I don't have to worry about that. But a lot of my work, I have an extremely highly detailed, structured Google Drive.
That the school set up?
No, I set it up myself.
Oh.
We each have Google Drive because we all have Google accounts.
Oh.
Because the school, we have Gmail, Google Drive, Google Slides, all that stuff. And so I have spent years organizing everything really carefully. I mean, like, I have like school and then my personal stuff because it's unlimited storage, so I'm obviously going to store stuff on it that isn't school related. Like, come on. And so there's school, and then it's sorted, and then there's folders by grade, and then in each of those it's by class. And then I don't organize it by like project when it comes down to classes, but it's really organized, and I am so happy. And Jesus Christ, my personal folder is, you know what? There's a lot of different folders because of the varying, kinds of things I store there, but it's just as organized, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit scary when I look at it, and it's also mildly annoying because I have to click through so many folders. But yeah.
The other thing that's good about that, I mean, that's actually a way to do this and it's free. So you could create folders for assignments.
Yeah, well,
and
you only have
different documents for
you,
different parts of the assignments.
Unless you buy more storage, you only have 15 gigabytes that Google gives you free.
Yeah, but a lot of people are just going to be working with Word docs. I mean,
that's true.
Google Docs.
Yeah,
so,
that is true.
But you could, for instance, use that as a way to organize your assignments.
I've been doing that since 7th grade, and it works. Depending on how well you organize it, because if you're just saving files to the My Drive thing, that just saves them to the front page of Drive.
Yeah, and
then
horrible.
I hate it.
The organization of Google Drive, it's horrible.
Yeah.
The thing about keeping tabs open, that works too. Like, I do that on a day-to-day basis. That works fine. Do you know what I mean?
I have too many windows on Chrome for Chrome
crashes.
No, it doesn't crash. It just uses a lot of my RAM.
So the thing is that on a day-to-day basis, that's fine.
I mean, 12
honestly,
windows and in total like 40 tabs.
My boss was just sharing her screen in a meeting, and I think she literally had 20 tabs open in her browser.
Yeah, I mean, I separate them by
she is really productive.
Yeah.
So again, what it comes down to is what works for you.
So just a reminder, we now have a Discord server, which will be linked below, and stop on by. It's a place where people can talk about what's going on with them, hopefully find some support either in the people that are already there or the resources that we have in that server. We just want it to be a safe place for people to come and feel comfortable talking or finding resources. Anyways, we hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can give it a like. If you want to say anything at all, you can leave it in the form of a comment, and if you want to see more, you can subscribe. But in any case, we hope that you have a nice day.
Take care.